The Turkish S-400 just snapped a fire control lock onto the USS Donald Cook. No warning, no hesitation. We're trapped in the tightest stretch of the Bosphorus, boxed in with zero room to maneuver. Overhead, two Russian Su-35 flankers rip through the sky at Mach 1.5, slamming the ship with brutal shockwaves that rattle everything on board. On the Turkish shoreline, a Bastion P battery starts turning, its launch tubes lining up directly with our hull. They're prepping a P-800 Onyx missile. This thing moves at nearly 1,900 miles per hour, meaning it could smash into our bridge in just 4 seconds. There's no time to think, no time to escape. We're caught between a NATO ally and a Russian threat at the exact same moment. The Mark 41 VLS covers start sliding open, metal grinding as the system readies for a full response. The ship's combat computer is seconds away from triggering a ripple-fire launch. This Arleigh Burke-class destroyer is stuck in a channel barely wider than a dozen football fields. To the north, Russian jets dive aggressively. To the east, Turkish radar systems lock in tight. This isn't random. It's a coordinated ambush unfolding in real time. One wrong move, one accidental trigger, and the USS Donald Cook turns into a multi-billion-dollar disaster burning in the middle of a crowded shipping lane. The tension is unreal. This is a three-way standoff with missiles practically begging to be launched. But the USS Donald Cook doesn't freeze. We hit back fast. The captain authorizes immediate electronic attack. The A/SLQ-32V6 electronic warfare system powers up, flooding the airwaves with intense electromagnetic energy in a direct attempt to disrupt the Turkish S-400. On shore, Russian technicians stare at their screens as clean radar images suddenly twist into chaotic static. Their high-end systems start glitching out, turning into digital noise right in front of them. This isn't just a standoff anymore, it's electronic warfare in full force. Then things get even more dangerous. A Turkish Ada-class corvette, the TCG Heybeliada, bursts out from behind a civilian tanker and charges straight toward our starboard side at over 34 miles per hour. In a channel this speed is reckless. It's a near-collision scenario unfolding in seconds. The USS Donald Cook shudders hard as engines reverse, churning the water into violent foam. The Turkish corvette misses our bow by less than 50 yards, close enough to clearly see sailors manning their 76mm OTO Malera deck gun staring right at us. One miscalculation and both ships would have collided in a catastrophic crash. While we dodge that threat, our Mark 41 VLS cells are fully primed. SM-2 interceptors and RIM-116 RAM missiles are locked and ready to fire instantly. If even one Turkish missile launches, the Bosphorus would erupt into chaos, burning ships, debris everywhere, no survivors in sight. Above it all, the Russian Su-35 pilots watch closely, convinced they're witnessing the start of a NATO internal conflict. From their perspective, Turkey looks like it just turned against its own allies. Moscow believes this entire situation is about data collection. They think Turkey is using the S-400 system to capture Aegis radar signatures, planning to pass that intel along to other rivals. That's the story being pushed to justify Russian involvement, and it explains why their technicians are embedded so deeply in Turkish systems. But the reality is far more complicated and far more calculated. Turkey is under pressure from every direction. After purchasing the S-400, they faced serious consequences, including sanctions and being cut out of key defense programs. They need leverage, and they need it fast. So President Erdogan makes a bold, risky move, offering access to the inner workings of the S-400 system itself. This entire confrontation in the Bosphorus starts to look less like chaos and more like a setup. By locking onto the USS Donald Cook, Turkey creates the perfect scenario. A high-intensity radar engagement gives the U.S. a clear justification to deploy its most advanced electronic warfare and cyber tools. It's not just a standoff, it's an opportunity. The moment the S-400 locks on, it effectively opens a digital door. Turkish leadership knows exactly what will happen next. U.S. systems will push back hard, probing, analyzing, and trying to break into the network. And that's exactly what they want. The Russian Technicians sitting at their consoles thought they were tracking us, recording every signal like they had the upper hand. But the truth was way more twisted. The Turkish system had already been quietly modified, turning the entire setup into a trap. Instead of blocking us out, it let us dig in deeper, pulling data straight from the system and exposing critical Russian source code. Turkey wasn't trying to stop us. They were using us like a high-powered vacuum, sucking up sensitive intel right under Russia's nose. And the wild part? Russia had no clue the whole game was rigged from the start. For those who've served, you already know that sound. The hard lock alarm cutting through everything. It's sharp, urgent, impossible to ignore. Whether it was on an Arleigh Burke destroyer or out on a carrier deck, that sound meant one thing. You were the line between safety and chaos. If you've ever stood watch in moments like that, or know someone who has, you understand how real this gets. When things go this quiet and this tense, every second matters. Back inside the Turkish S-400 command vans, the Russian technicians finally catch on. They spot the intrusion and realize this isn't just jamming. It's a full-on breach into their system architecture. Panic kicks in fast. Russian command immediately cuts the Turkish link and takes direct control, patching orders straight to the Su-35 flankers circling above. No more middle layer. This just escalated hard. The Su-35s respond instantly, banking aggressively and pulling intense G-forces as they dive toward the EA-18G Growlers. The lead jet locks in and fires a KH-31P anti-radiation missile, a weapon built specifically to hunt jamming signals. This thing screams through the air at over 2,300 miles per hour, locking onto the Growler's emissions like a predator. In less than 30 seconds, it's on top of them. Inside the cockpit, alarms explode to life. The pilot reacts fast. Afterburners ignite, and a massive cloud of chaff bursts into the air. The missile takes the bait and detonates just 200 yards behind them, lighting up the sky in a violent orange blast. But there's no pause. The fight only gets worse. While one Russian jet focuses on the Growlers, the second flanker shifts targets and dives straight toward the USS Donald Cook. It launches two KH-35U anti-ship missiles, low-flying sea skimmers that hug the water at just 10 feet above the surface. These missiles are hard to spot and even harder to stop. On the bridge, the alarm tone changes. Lower, heavier, more dangerous. Everyone knows what that means. The Aegis system reacts instantly, calculating intercept paths in milliseconds. Two RIM-162 evolved Sea Sparrow missiles blast out of the Mark 41 VLS cells at blazing speed. The first interceptor hits clean, smashing the lead KH-35U out of the sky in a flash. The second missile tries to outmaneuver, pulling a sudden pop-up move to dodge impact. It barely slips past the intercept, missing the ship's superstructure by less than 100 feet before slamming into the water, sending up a massive column of spray. That was way too close. At this point, it's no longer a standoff. It's active combat in one of the tightest waterways on the planet. The EA-18G Growler flight is now in a fight for survival. One Su-35 closes the distance fast, pushing into a range where electronic warfare isn't enough anymore. The Russian pilot maneuvers with precision, exploiting blind spots and setting up for a heat-seeking R-73 missile. This weapon locks onto engine heat, tracking pure thermal energy with deadly accuracy. But the lead Growler doesn't run. Instead, it makes a bold move, pulling its nose up to bleed speed and shift positioning. At the same time, it activates the ALQ-218 system in narrowband mode, zeroing in on specific signals with extreme precision. Every movement now is calculated by advanced onboard systems, where computers process decisions faster than any human could react. In this kind of fight, even a fraction of a second can decide everything, and both sides know it. By blasting the Su-35S with a tight burst of high-energy radio waves tuned to a precise frequency, the American jet triggered something the Russian pilot never saw coming: a sudden glitch inside the flight computer. In an instant, the flanker's control surfaces twitched and its nose dipped hard toward the water, completely wrecking the pilot's aim. It was brief, chaotic, and just enough to shift the balance. That tiny window cracked open and the counterattack came fast. The wingman didn't hesitate. He rolled the Growler upside down and launched an AIM-120 AMRAAM. This missile is pure speed and precision, ripping through the air at close to 3,000 miles per hour, faster than anything the pilot could outrun. The Russian pilot fought back hard, wresting control of the jet and pulling away toward the mountains while dumping a storm of bright magnesium flares. Then came a desperate move, a Cobra maneuver. The jet snapped upward, bleeding massive speed in a split second, trying to throw off the incoming missile. It almost worked. The missile missed the cockpit by less than 10 feet before slamming into the hillside, erupting into a violent explosion of fire and debris. The hunters had just become the hunted. Meanwhile, the USS Donald Cook pushed into the narrowest stretch of the Bosphorus, where every meter mattered. The Turkish S-400 system was still trying to reboot, but now the Russian technicians were stuck dealing with something far worse, a system they couldn't fully control. A Turkish modified firewall had quietly left an opening, and now that weakness was being exploited in real time. The Growlers and the ship's electronic warfare systems synced up perfectly, launching a coordinated digital strike. What they sent wasn't just interference. It was a hidden payload, a ghost kernel disguised as a routine system update from the original manufacturer, slipped right into the S-400 network. Inside the command van's screens suddenly went black. For a moment, nothing. Then they flickered back on, but something was very wrong. Every display turned deep navy blue, and right in the center appeared a stark white anchor, the symbol of the U.S. Navy. The system had been completely hijacked. This anchor protocol didn't just take over the interface, it seized control of the S-400 search radar and flipped it into a broadcasting beacon. Its own position was now being transmitted openly on an unencrypted civilian frequency, basically announcing to anyone listening, "Here I am, and I'm exposed." For the next 15 minutes, chaos spread across the entire region. Russian assets in the Black Sea suddenly went blind. Su-35 pilots lost their data links as warning alerts flooded their cockpits. Coastal missile batteries lost targeting capability. The entire chain of detection and response just collapsed. It wasn't just disruption, it was total system failure. The core of the network had been taken apart from the inside. And while all eyes were locked on those compromised screens, something else was already in motion. From the deck of the USS Donald Cook, RQ-21, Blackjack reconnaissance drones launched into the night. These lightweight carbon fiber drones are built to stay low and nearly invisible. With the S-400 network offline, they skimmed across the Black Sea at wave-top level, heading straight for a sensitive Russian-controlled area in Crimea. As the drones crossed the coastline, a Pantsir S-1 air defense system finally picked them up. Mounted on a mobile platform with twin 30mm cannons, it reacted immediately. The operator opened fire, sending streams of tracer rounds slicing through the dark sky, trying to catch targets that were already slipping through the cracks. The Pantsir S-1 kept firing, its twin 30mm cannons rattling non-stop as bright tracer rounds ripped through the sky. But it was already too late. The RQ-21 Blackjack drones were flying low, fast, and unpredictable, slipping through gaps like shadows. One drone suddenly climbed just enough to deploy its payload, small, precise, and devastating. It didn't explode like a bomb. Instead, it released a burst of electronic interference right over the defense system. In seconds, the Pantsir's targeting screen started glitching, flickering between false contacts and empty sky. The operator was firing blind. The remaining drones pushed deeper inland, locking onto their objective, a heavily guarded Russian command facility tucked along the Crimean coastline. This wasn't just any outpost, it was a coordination hub, feeding real-time data to multiple systems across the region, and right now, it was completely exposed. With the S-400 network compromised and local defenses scrambled, the drones had a clear path in. Back on the USS Donald Cook, the Combat Information Center was locked in. Every feed, every signal, every movement was being tracked in real time. The electronic warfare team maintained pressure, making sure the Russian system stayed confused and disconnected. This wasn't chaos, it was controlled disruption. Every second bought the drones more space to operate. As the first drone reached the outer perimeter of the facility, it transmitted a burst of high-resolution imagery back to the ship. Structures, vehicles, antenna arrays, everything mapped out instantly. Then came the next phase. A second drone dropped lower and released a precision-guided micro-munition Prama onto a key communications node. The impact was sharp and direct, knocking out a critical relay without leveling the entire site. This was targeted, intentional, and calculated. Inside the facility, systems began to fail one by one. Communication lines went dead. Backup channels refused to sync. Confusion spread fast as operators tried to understand what was happening. They weren't under a full-scale attack. They were being surgically dismantled. Out at sea, the situation finally began to shift. The Russian jets, now cut off from reliable data, started pulling back to safer distances. Without coordination, their advantage faded quickly. The Turkish systems remained unstable, still struggling under the weight of the embedded exploit. What started as a high-risk standoff was now tilting in a completely different direction. The USS Donald Cook held its position, engines steady, systems still hot and ready. No victory calls, no celebrations, just controlled focus. Because even with the upper hand, one mistake in a place like this could flip everything again in seconds. One drone suddenly juked sideways, executing a pre-programmed evasive move just as another burst of fire tore through the air. The Russian operator reacted fast, launching a 9M335 missile, but without full radar support, the shot was off. The missile streaked past and detonated nearly 50 yards wide, completely missing its target. The drones kept moving, pushing straight toward the facility like nothing could stop them now. As they reached the site, thermal cameras locked in and zoomed tight on the loading docks. What they revealed was explosive. Russian personnel were actively loading Fateh 110 ballistic missiles into shipping containers marked with humanitarian aid logos. It wasn't just hidden, it was disguised in plain sight. Then came something even more serious. The drones captured clear serial numbers from crates carrying components tied to the 3M22 Zircon hypersonic system. This wasn't routine transport. This was a pipeline moving advanced weapons undercover. On the way out, one drone took a direct hit from 30mm cannon fire and dropped out of the sky. But it didn't matter anymore. Every piece of critical data had already been transmitted back to the USS Donald Cook. The mission had delivered exactly what was needed: hard proof. Evidence that multiple shipments were being used to quietly expand missile capabilities across the region. That changes everything. But the operation didn't stop there. The Anchor protocol had one more unexpected effect. Because multiple defense networks were indirectly connected through shared systems, the same disruptive code spread further than anyone anticipated. Suddenly, additional radar and missile systems in the region began experiencing identical failures. Screens went dark, systems froze, operators were left staring at that same blue display with the white anchor staring back at them. At that exact moment, strike aircraft moved in. US F-15E Strike Eagles and Israeli F-35 Yadir jets crossed into contested airspace at high altitude. With radar systems offline and coordination broken, there was little warning. Every attempt to reboot defenses failed as the embedded code triggered deeper system errors. The window was open, and it was used. The Strike Eagles locked onto the convoys that had been tracked from the earlier drone surveillance. Precision-guided munitions were released, hitting targets with exact timing. The explosions triggered chain reactions as stored rocket components ignited, sending massive fireballs into the air. Entire staging zones were wiped out in seconds. One air defense unit managed to respond, firing a single missile using backup targeting. For a moment, it looked like a hit, but the aircraft deployed a decoy, drawing the missile away just in time. The jet continued untouched, disappearing back into the dark sky. Within 20 minutes, the entire operation was over. What had been a covert weapons movement turned into a field of burning wreckage. Back at sea, the USS Donald Cook cleared the Bosphorus and moved into open water. Right on schedule, the S-400 systems began to recover, but it was far too late. The drones were gone, the data was secured. The operation had already reshaped the situation. The ship continued forward, systems still active, crew still on edge. No celebrations, no pause, just readiness. Because in that region, the line between stability and escalation is razor thin. This moment proved something critical. Modern conflict isn't just about firepower, it's about control of information. And in this case, information changed everything. Disclaimer. This story is a dramatized interpretation designed to illustrate complex military scenarios. Some elements are hypothetical and not a direct account of real-world events. Certain details, dialogue, and sequences are fictional, but inspired by publicly known technologies and geopolitical dynamics.